Here we're going to talk about messing with the market. What I talked about last time was how amazing the price system was. The problem is it moves so fast that many people don't want to adjust. They don't want to change their lives. They want to be where they are, they want to be happy where they are, and they don't want to change. Okay? So that's why I keep telling you, you have to be able to change, you have to be able to adapt, because the world is not going to be a nice, friendly place for you just because you want that. The problem is a lot of people want that. So when you decide to mess with the market, what you end up doing is, in some cases, killing people and breaking things. It causes a lot of problems. In economics, they call it a dislocation, so that it tries to convey the idea that this is a real problem. Like, the market could be nice and in its position, but it's dislocated and it's broken. All right? So here we've got our classic supply and demand graph. And what we're going to do is we're going to have corn. We've talked about corn before. It's a great example here, and let's see what happens. Okay. You've got supply and demand going here. The problem is that for farmers, the supply curve keeps shifting further and further. Because what farmers do is they innovate. They're greedy. They want more money. They're a business. And so the farmers, all the farms produce as much as they can to make more money. But when they produce more, the supply curve shifts this way. With every innovation, with every creation, when they do that, the price goes down. So a farmer works harder, they buy a bigger farm, they get this laser-guided GPS combine that drives itself without even a farmer in it. I know, those things actually exist. And every time they do, that price just goes down and down and down. Now, for us as consumers, that's amazing because we get lots and lots of food at very low prices. And we get it very efficiently, and we get it very nicely delivered for us. And so as consumers, everything's great. In fact, our farmers are so efficient that only 1 to 2% of our entire population needs to work in farming. Everyone else is freed up to do something else. That's how efficient it is. Now, the farmers, they don't like this because, that requires a lot of work. And if you don't innovate, if you aren't the best, if you aren't hardworking, then you're gone. Another farm will buy you out. And a lot of farmers don't like that. They don't want to go out of business. So, instead of having these low prices, what the farmer wants is a high price. So there's our supply and demand curve again, but instead of the market making everything a lower and lower price, what the farmers do is they go to their senator and they say, "Hey, senator, if you find a way to raise the price, we will all vote for you." And the senator says, "Ooh, votes, yes, I love that. I'm going to find a way to help you." And so what they do is they promise the farmers, "I will give you a higher price." So corn might be sold for $1 a bushel right now. That's the worldwide price. But the senator says, "I'm going to get you a higher price if you vote for me." So what the senator does is he talks with all the other senators because they all want the same thing on their, wheat, oranges, onions, whatever the agricultural product is in their district. So they all vote for each other's, thing here. and this is what happens. So we're just going to focus on corn, but this happens hundreds of places. So what they do is they pass a law that says you can't sell corn for any less than $2. Okay? So corn goes from $1 to $2, and you can't sell for anything else. That's what you have to do, is $2. And what they call this is a price floor. This is a price floor, okay? Because what that means is the price can fluctuate up here, but as soon as it hits $2, it sticks. That's the floor right there. It can't go below. It should be here at $1. That's the worldwide price. But the price floor holds it at $2, and it can't go any lower because that would be illegal. Okay? So everyone says, oh, our senator's awesome. Look, he got us $2 corn. What do? Law of supply means that they're going to produce out here. Because if the price is $2, then all the farmers say, ooh, I can plant more corn. And they do. They buy up extra hillsides, they plow under their onions, and they put in corn because it's a guaranteed high price. Why wouldn't you take the guaranteed money? Well, the problem is when they go to sell it, the law of demand says people aren't going to want it. If you double the price of corn, people say, well, I can substitute. I mean, I like corn on the cob, but for that price, forget it. I'm not going to buy it. And so, what we have is a surplus. So if you're taking notes, you should be writing this in your graph, or you can go back and watch the video again when it's on YouTube. But with a price floor, it can fluctuate anywhere up here, but as soon as it hits that floor, it's stuck. Legally, it can't go below it. So by doubling the price of the corn, all of the farmers rejoice and plant even more, because that's the law of supply. But all the consumers turn away and buy less, because that's the law of demand. Now your efficient price at $1 is causing a surplus at $2. So now all the farmers, they got all this corn. In fact, they got more corn than they've ever produced. See, they produced a higher quantity. What are they going to do with it? So first you have the price floor. Then you've got to find some way to help the farmers. You're a senator. You've caused this problem. Now what are you going to do about all this extra corn? So some of you out there might say, well, why can't the farmers just sell it? Well, they would. The problem is the worldwide price is $1, so no one's going to buy it at $2. So they sell it to another country? No. They want $1, but the farmer says, well, I was supposed to get $2. And they can't find it because no one wants to buy it at $2. They only buy it at $1. So they go to their senator and say, look, Senator, this isn't working. You lied to us, and we're not going to vote for you again unless you fix it. The senator says, I got an idea. I'll have the taxpayers buy the corn so that I can get elected. It's not my money. The government money is the taxpayers' money. So I'm going to have the taxpayer buy it. Okay? So now we've got the senator says, why, I'll vote with all my other senators. We all vote that have the government buy it. We'll create a Department of Agriculture, and it will be responsible for buying up all the surplus food because we don't want it to go to waste. There never was a surplus in the first place until we passed the law to double the price of corn. Now we pass another law and have a department to then administer the buying of the surplus with the taxpayer dollars that people didn't want to buy in the first place. All right, here we go. So now the government owns a whole bunch of corn. What are they going to do with it? Well, they could give it away, but then that would destroy the price. So how are we going to do this here? The government can't sell it because the world only wants $1. They don't sell it at $2. So the government bought it from the farmer at $2. Now, What's the government going to do with all this extra corn they bought at $2? So what they do is they send it overseas. All right? They dump it on other countries. They dump it on other countries. And in fact, it's an actual economics term. It's called dumping. So you dump the excess corn onto other countries. You pass a law as a senator, you call it a humanitarian effort. That's so nice. You know, we're helping the poor countries. Well, so take a really poor country like Somalia. Okay? They have almost nothing. It's a very poor, hard to develop country, but they do have farmers there, and those farmers are trying to make a living. And if they can get $1 per bushel of corn, that's a lot for them. You know, they're out plowing by hand, and it's not very efficient, but if they put their corn out there on the market, they can get $1 per bushel of corn, and that's a lot. And that begins to build up the farmers in that country, and it increases the capital supply, and just like America, they're off and running. All right? Now, what happens, though, is that they might have, you know, a drought or something like that, and there's not as much supply. And so immediately Americans say, I'll send you our corn. So we take it to Somalia, Mogadishu, the port there, and our big container ship rolls in, and they dump all the corn out on the ground and say, here you go, people, free corn. What happens? If the corn is free, can the farmer in Somalia sell any of their corn? See, here the Americans are bringing in these huge container ships, and they're dumping corn on the ground for $0 because we're trying to help people. Well, what did we just do to the whole agricultural community in that country? We just put every farmer out of business. So they can't pay their rent for their land. They can't feed their families unless they go get the free corn. But now they are unemployed. Someone might take their land if they can't pay rent. They can't cover their costs for maybe buying a tractor or, you know, upgrading or anything like that, because now we've essentially destroyed the whole thing. The price of corn now becomes not $1 in Somalia, it becomes 0. It's free. And so what's a farmer to do? Is the farmer in Somalia just going to sit there and go, sorry kids, I guess we'll just have to starve to death because the Americans wanted to dump the corn on the ground? No. What they do is they go to the local warlord and say, hey, look, do you have any work? And the warlord says, yeah, I got a job for you. I don't like the warlord on the other side of the hill. If you could go kill his guys, I'll feed your family. And if you die doing it, that's okay. I'll continue to feed your family. So what's the farmer do? He picks up the gun. He goes to fight the war against the other warlord. The same thing's happening on the other side of the hill, coming back. And so you look at some of these countries and you think, how can they be so war-torn? How can they be so totally backwards about this? Like, Somalia has, I think, a 6-way civil war going right now. It's a mess, you know? How come they can't get it together? Well, it's because if they tried to do some kind of honest work, like farming, see, every year a container ship comes into port and dumps corn on the ground for $0. And so the market is dislocated. It doesn't work anymore. There's no price system at 0. So the farmers do what they can to survive. They fight in civil wars. They shoot at each other. That's what they have to do. Okay? If you watch the movie Black Hawk Down, which is based on a true story, most of the movie is pretty accurate to what happened. You'll notice at the beginning of the movie, the first 5 minutes apply to what I'm saying here. There was a bunch of food supplies being dumped on the ground, and some militia people, warlords, came in from the, in Somalia there, and they started taking the food, and they would take all the food back to their compounds, and then they would dole it out as long as people fought for them. So that's what was going on at the beginning of the movie. If you go watch the first 5 minutes of Black Hawk Down, it will give you exactly this scenario that I'm describing right here. So you gotta be careful what you vote for, because things are not just, simple, like, oh, we'll just raise the price. That has unintended consequences, just like we talked about in chapter 1. And those unintended consequences oftentimes lead to civil wars in other countries. Now you might say, hey, well, haven't we helped those people? Okay. Name the country that the United States has lifted out of poverty. Name the country that the United States has lifted out of poverty. We've been doing this for 60, 70 years. When's it going to work? It's not going to work. The problem is, what we need to do is let the market work. We need to let farmers go out of business in our own country if they're not efficient. We need to not ask our senators to change the market in such a way that it puts in a price floor. Then we wouldn't have to spend billions of dollars buying extra corn that we never wanted to produce in the first place, and then spending even more money to send it to another country to dump on them and wreck their economy. Now, if it's your goal to wreck people's economies, this is a really efficient system at doing that. So you can Google it and look it up. Dumping is this whole idea and this action right here. So are we as America doing this out of ignorance, or are we doing this out of malice? Are we keeping countries of the world poor and fighting each other so that we can stay on top of things? Or are we just doing it because we just don't want to adapt to the price system? We just don't like reality the way it is, and we want to change it. Okay? So we would have a lot more efficiency. We would have a lot less dollars we spend on waste. We're basically buying extra corn we don't need for people who don't want it. Also, someone can get elected and some farmers can stay on their land. All right? So hopefully you have some questions about this, but this goes on in all kinds of industries. It's not just corn. It's also high-tech industries. It's transportation. It's utilities. These are the kind of things that if you mess with the market, you're going to end up killing people and breaking things. Okay?